an email to all of you after the session is over with so that we can, again, get you the information that you need from today's session. So I just wanted to go ahead and welcome you to today's session. I wanted to start just by thanking each and every one of you. I know that you and your staff have been working countless hours in preparation for the return to school for our students. I know that especially for our special educators, this task just seems overwhelming because of the amount of work that needs to be done. I know that we were given really little to no flexibility from the federal government, from VDOE around services for students with disabilities and timelines to make sure that we have evaluations and assessments and eligibilities up to date and moving forward. And so what this causes as a result from the spring and a lot of the different meetings and evaluations that started to sort of stack up and weren't completed, it's created a backlog that now we're forced to move forward the best we can with. And all of these things are cutting into time that your special educators have to prepare for students. So we recognize that this is a big lift for special educators in Fairfax County to be able to get this work done. And I just appreciate each one of you and your leadership in helping your teams as they navigate this. Just know that we're committed to reaching out to your teachers and staff as we need to help support them, your department chairs, provide any updates, any questions that need to be answered. Just know that we're in central office at the ready to partner with you and get you the information that you need. But today's session is really designed to provide some just-in-time updates for you. And then hopefully we'll have a good amount of time to be able to open up for questions and answers. So we're going to go through just 6 slides that will provide some key updates, and then afterward we'll have an opportunity for a little bit of Q&A discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and what I want to do is I want to start by introducing you to Ellie Stack. She is our coordinator of pre-K through 12 special education instruction. She and her team have done an incredible amount of work getting resources together and preparing our teachers and our staff for the return to school for our students. And so Ellie's going to talk a little bit about our special education resource hub, as well as some information related to students accessing adapted curriculum and our general curriculum.
All right, thanks, Mike. Good afternoon, everyone. We're thrilled to have you here this afternoon. The first link that's on the agenda, and I just posted it in the chat window, takes you to the Special Education Resource Hub for this return to school for all of our teachers working with students with disabilities. As you click, if you click on the link, and as you click on the link, please know that it is a Google site, and therefore it works best if you're using Chrome, and you will need to be logged into your FCPS school's net account. But like I said, that is the one location where we are putting all of our information for the start of the year. Or if it's not actually on this site links to where you can find the information for the start of the year. This was shared in an infogram a few weeks ago, but I know how busy you all are and how much information is coming at you, so we wanted to highlight it today. And also, as I talk through the rest of my slide here, I will be referencing what is on the hub. The hub does link to the Instructional Services Department. They put out a return to school website that your teachers learned about last week. And that website, which includes all of the essential standards and curriculum that we'll be teaching this year, it also includes special education information. And so we're working very closely with instructional services like we typically do. So first we're going to start looking at adapted curriculum, or CAP B. So these are our students who are in the CAP B setting. We have posted on the hub an example of what a schedule might look like for students who are getting CAP B services. When we talk about this and when we look at the sample schedule, one of the key things we want to keep in mind is the default for our students should be to attend all day Tuesday through Friday, just like their general ed peers are attending. We do know, however, that for many of our students with intellectual disabilities and some of our more involved students with autism, attending the 80-minute block class is not realistic or appropriate for them during this time of distance learning. And as you look at the sample schedule, if you haven't seen it yet, and as your leads look at it, you'll see that the sample schedule shows what it might look like if we break our classes into 40-minute chunks. And so for the, let's say for the first period, instead of going to an 80-minute block class, we split the class in half and have 40 minutes students who come first thing, and the other, one group of students comes for the first 40 minutes and another group of students for the second 40 minutes. What this allows the teacher and paraprofessional to do is to provide that real more individualized support for students in that shorter amount of time. And then, of course, more than they could if it was the whole class. But like we're saying, if it's appropriate for students to attend the whole class, and if it's appropriate for students to be included in the general education classes or the Cat A sections of classes, we would still want our Cat B students to be included as they were during a typical school year. Last year, when we shut down in March, one of the impacts that we saw immediately was how our research-based programs we used during virtual learning. And some of our programs we weren't able to use at all last year, whether it was due to permission from the company or in some cases how we were providing direct instruction last spring. The companies have been working a lot over the last 6-7 months. And many of the companies that we've been working with, I guess it's only been 6 months, but many of the companies that we have been working with have created resources and alternatives so that we can use their programs during virtual learning. That, plus the addition to the fact that we are meeting with students for direct instruction at least the 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday, that allows for many of our research-based programs to be used this fall similarly to how they were used when we were in person. So we would like for our teachers to continue to be making the instructional matches like they would during a typical school year. One of the nice things that a number of our companies have done is they have created online resources. Some of them were available before the shutdown, and we in Fairfax just typically did not use it on a wide basis, because the in-person instruction is what we wanted teachers to focus on. But now that we need to provide it virtually, we have purchased Attainment Hub resources for your teachers, as well as the News to You newsletter for your Cat B teachers. These are resources. The Attainment Hub is one that students can access to work on their those really early elementary or early reading and math skills. And then the News to You is a monthly newsletter, and includes current events as well as activities that your teachers can do with their students. So those are some licenses that we have purchased for Cat B. When we talk about the expectations for Cat B, we are expecting that your teachers are meeting with their students on a daily basis, Tuesday through Friday. And if they need ideas on how to work with students with more significant disabilities, please have them reach out to my team and to Tina Wilkerson and the ABA team. We have ideas for working with our most involved students. We do put on the Cat B expectations that our teachers will be reaching out to the students twice a month, or to the parents twice a month, to see how things are going, with the knowledge that for some students and parents, they might need to have more than contact more than just twice a month. And so as we were talking to the school board about this, they did want us to make sure that we are sharing that this twice a month is the minimum expectation. If you have a family or that needs that more contact than twice a month, then teachers may be contacting parents once a week or even more than that. But the partnership with our parents, especially for our Cat B parents, is so crucial during this time period, because in many cases the caregivers having to support students while they're accessing the virtual instruction. When we move down to the general curriculum, to Cat A, we want our students included like we do like during a typical year. At secondary, it's going to look a lot like it would during a typical school year. For our students who are accessing the general curriculum and finding ways to schedule it for students who need access to the specialized instruction programs, similar to how we would do during the typical school year. One of the expectations that we have for teachers for our students who are accessing the general curriculum, or Cat A, is that they're contacting the parents, or the students rather, twice a month. So Cat B, the teachers are contacting the parents. Cat A, we're connecting with the student twice a month outside of our scheduled time. And that is to make sure that the teacher is making that connection with students to avoid a student struggling without a teacher not knowing that the student is struggling. Once again, similar to Cat B, we might have students who require more connection than just that twice a month. And so we would expect our teachers to use their professional judgment in working with students. But this is to help in the fall or spring. What we saw sometimes happening was it was up to the student to reach out to the teacher. And in this case, we are asking our teachers or telling the teachers that they are expected to reach out. So that is the expectations for the teachers. Once again, we've got this updated guidance. The document is available on the hub that talks about how our research-based programs can be used during virtual instruction. And what we're able to do last year in the spring, when everything happened as quickly as it did, in some cases, rather than following our typical instructional matching guidelines, we basically were finding solutions that would work given the situation we were in. And in that case, some of you may know that Lexia is one program that was used broadly across the board, and it was great that our students were having access to that the virtual reading. What we are able to do now that our teachers are providing direct instruction at least 4 days a week, if not that 5th day, and we are able to use many of our other programs, is that we are going back to our typical practice of that instructional matching. We do know that some students will have access to programs such as Lexia that maybe they wouldn't typically have had, but we want to go back to matching to find the most appropriate program for a student that our research shows that's where we're expected to see the greatest growth with those students. And then for students who are using Lexia, that does not replace the direct instruction provided by the teacher. Lexia does not replace instruction. It's not a full program like some of our other programs where the teachers have a script that they're following. So our teachers who are using Lexia would still need to be providing the direct reading instruction. But all of the guidance and everything referenced on this slide can be found at the hub.
Thank you, Ellie. So I'm going to go ahead and just go over some of the information on related services. One of the things that Dr. Brabrand stressed to the school board and to our community at the work session, and we're stressing to you, is that special educators really need to be flexible in order to be able to schedule required services throughout a student's day. And so that is true for related service providers as well. So we just wanted to remind you and your department chairs and your special ed teachers that there is flexibility in service delivery during synchronous and asynchronous blocks for students, Tuesday through Friday. And we've also said that Monday intervention time can also be used to deliver IEP services. So it could be a related service, or it could be some aspect of specialized instruction as well. So again, the idea is, I know your case managers are working very closely with parents and with students as they look at the schedule, the daily schedule for students, and trying to make sure that there's enough time to deliver their required services. But we just wanted to let you know that that flexibility will also be needed for many of our related service providers. The other thing that we wanted to let you know that's different from the spring is that now parent-informed consent for participation in meetings will only be in effect when the student on a related service provider's caseload is actually in attendance at that meeting. So otherwise, a related service provider can participate in special education meetings, eligibility meetings, staffing meetings without parental informed consent. But again, unless that student's in attendance, then they will need that informed consent signed. That is a little bit different from our practice during the spring. We wanted to give a reminder about the PPE for evaluations. So I know that the Office of Procurement has delivered an initial set of PPE to schools that were going directly to the department chairs at the secondary level. But we also know that based on the needs of your staff, some of that initial shipment is not enough to be able to provide to the numbers of teachers or evaluators who might need that. So we're meeting back with our friends in procurement this week so that we can talk with them about a process for making sure that if you need additional PPE items, that we're able to provide those items to you in a pretty quick turnaround time. So we'll be getting more information out about that. But regardless, I've sent a link, or I put a link in the PowerPoint slide to the original infogram that went out that listed the safety protocols that needed to be observed when your staff were conducting in-person evaluations. So again, the link is up there for you to see. But we're committed to working with you and helping to get additional PPE items to your schools that you're going to need. And then the last item here was just a reminder that related service providers are an important member of the IEP team, and that we'd like them included in IEP addendums that place so that they do have an opportunity to either addend goals or to be involved in the discussion around the service delivery hours or the provision of those services. So please just make sure that you're including them and your staff is including them in those IEP addendums. Okay, the next slide, I'm going to let Tina Wilkerson, our coordinator of applied behavior analysis, talk about a training that's going to be taking place this week.
Hi everyone. The ABA team is encouraging adaptive curriculum teachers, Cat B teachers, to begin to teach their students how to wear a mask, and by starting to introduce mask wearing and masks into their virtual instruction. This is an important skill for all students to keep them safe in the community, on the bus, and in the school setting. We believe most students can learn to wear a mask using ABA principles of reinforcement, pairing, and shaping. If teachers begin to instruct on this now, we will be further along in that process when the students return to face-to-face instruction. Recommended training is being provided on Wednesday, August 26th. We have 2 sessions on how to teach students to wear a mask and how to work with parents in this very important instruction. Additionally, we are going to record the sessions so that they'll be available for staff at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. So I'm going to turn things over to Jane Strong now, who is going to go through some just-in-time procedural support updates.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we wanted to make sure that you all heard from us that we have posted on the website, on the hub, actually not on the hub, on the public side for parents, a version of our IEP guidance documents. So we created a version for early childhood, elementary, and for middle and high school. So this document is largely all of the content that was in your staff's version, but with a little bit of pared down content for parents. And that was shared out with the leadership of the Special Ed PTA last week and the advisory committee. So you may have parents who reference that, and I wanted you to know that that existed and that it is out there. For IEP addendums, as Mike said in the beginning, we know that you guys have a lot that you need to get done, and we appreciate all you're doing. There are some schools that are going like gangbusters getting IEP amendments done. Others are a little slower, and that's okay. Please, at the secondary level, if you have the ability, I know that you were trying to get your master schedules and case management assigned all last week. Some schools did a process where they used last year's case manager to expedite the review with a parent and a student or any review of the IEP for whether or not an addendum is needed. If you have not finished your case management yet, that would be a good way to expedite trying to get progress on your addendums. There's a couple of advantages to that. The parents already know last year's case manager, so that only works for some grade levels, I realize, but I wanted to put in some a plug for that for you all. So please try and get those addendums done, and remember that in the guidance, not every IEP will need an addendum. So we also have been getting a lot of questions with PSLs and with our due process office around the evaluations. I wanted to remind folks that we are not issuing 45-day extension letters any longer. For those students where in the spring the letter was used and the parent agreed to an extension, now that we are in the phased-in return to school, it is time to also include those evaluations into your list. But you have till roughly December 7th to get those done. If you recall, if you look at the 45-day extension letter, it mentioned that it's 45 days past the date of a return to in-person. So we are not a return to in-person quite yet, but we are going to be experiencing, hopefully, a phased-in approach to some students. So that's why this December 7th is a soft date. But try to have your school team looking at any of those evaluations. And really the bottom line is, for any of your initial evaluations, those should be your priority, to clear out the backlog of those open evaluations first. I was looking at some of the data, and a number of high schools have quite a number of reevals also due, but please prioritize your initials. We've also been getting a lot of questions about how to complete hearing screenings. Wanted to make sure you're aware that hearing screenings on an initial evaluation are required by the regulations. We are working with the health department to try to get their help with getting the screenings done. We know that there are some schools that have done some workarounds of that, and that's great. We'll be putting out new information as soon as we have it for helping you with that requirement. Many schools also ask for a vision screening, and that is not expressly required by regulations. Now, if your team had asked for the vision screening, which is one of those standard operating procedures that schools do just to rule out vision as a problem, you look at the last screening that was done when your student was in the rotation for new student screening for vision. And if the student passed that screening, you can reference that. And there's some other workarounds that you can do. If you are needing to go to eligibility for a student and you have everything except hearing and vision, talk with us in due process and procedure support about how to move forward. We're trying to get, as I said, the backlog of evaluations and eligibilities completed. So that's it for my slide. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Jane. And our last slide points you to our updated public webpage on the Return to School for Students with Disabilities. I've just included on this slide the link to the webpage and also some of the quick navigation tabs that will show you the different categories where a parent can navigate to get additional information. And so we've really done a pretty comprehensive job of updating this webpage for our parent community. The webpage itself includes sample schedules. It includes additional information related to the roles and responsibilities of our related service providers, other central office staff that support your schools, like our assistive technology resource teacher, our ABA coaches, behavior intervention teachers, adapted PE, hearing and vision itinerant. So there's a lot of additional information that's available our school psychologists and school social workers and the different ways that they can support not only you and your staff, but also direct support to our students as well as our families. So all of that information is linked and part of this webpage. It also, as Jane said, has links to the IEP information documents that Jane just referenced for our parents to be able to view. There's also a link to our frequently asked questions page, and again, sample schedules. So it's a pretty comprehensive site. It has been shared, this link, with our Special Education PTA, SEPTA, as well as our POAC, NOVA POAC group, and ACSD. So they are making sure that their membership all have access to this link. We'll also be doing later this week information in our special education newsletter that will go out Thursday to our more widespread special education community. So again, just wanted to make you aware that the updates are here and available to our parent community. Okay, we're going to move forward now to a period of Q&A where you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions. We do have quite a few central office staff. We have our directors from all 4 offices within DSS that are part of today's meeting, and we've got some additional staff that are here and available to answer any questions. So Jeff, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Thank you. I had a faculty meeting today, and there's a lot of teachers that are quite confused, and actually I'm a little confused myself when it comes to time and a half, the time and a half accommodation, and how to treat that in the asynchronous environment for our kids with IEPs. For example, one of the questions that I got asked today when I presented the 60 and 75-minute homework maximums or asynchronous work maximums, a teacher said, well, then if I have students that have time and a half, does that then mean, for example, that I should not write an assessment that's more than 40 minutes for a typical student so that all students are able to finish it within an hour? Or can I write an assessment that's longer and it would take a special needs students perhaps longer to take it? I just want to make sure we're being equitable and I'm not punishing kids, making them work significantly longer because they have an IEP. I'm really looking for what advice to give my gen ed teachers around the time and a half accommodation.
So thanks, Jeff, for that question. So I'll go ahead and start, and then if Jane and or Ellie Stack wants to add anything to the conversation. But I appreciate you bringing this up. You know, parents have been asking. We did in the spring have an accommodations toolbox that was accessible to parents and to staff as well, that gave some guidance around accommodations, and of course extended time is one of those more frequent accommodations that students have. So one of the things that I'm going to suggest to our instructional team is that we go in and we update that document to include maybe some guidance around extended time and the question that you ask. I think that, you know, our ultimate goal is obviously to be able to provide access to the instruction for students, and that the accommodations that they have that are identified in their IEP, they're given full access to those accommodations. So while we haven't, you know, sort of figured out or worked specifically on guidance given the asynchronous time, I think it's something that we need to definitely address. Ellie and Jane, I don't know if your teams have had any discussions around accommodations related to this this asynchronous time that you might want to add.
Or Jane, you can go first.
Well, I was just going to say, this is the first time I've had this question. So I don't have an answer other than we would not prescribe to the teacher how to structure the synchronous or asynchronous work. So I'll let Ellie add anything to that. I mean, it's just you're going to have to go through a problem solving of what makes the most sense in order to give the child that accommodation.
Sure, I'm just concerned that without any guidance, that there may be teachers who unduly punish, for lack of a better term, kids that have an extended time accommodation when the typical student might have up to 7 hours of work over the weekend and Monday as it is. And if a student has time and a half, then if we do the math, you know, theoretically, a kid could end up having 10 and a half hours of work to do, and I'm just concerned about that.
And Jeff, I'll just echo what Mike and Jane have said. Really appreciate you bringing this up to us. As you know, the guidance regarding the asynchronous was just rolling out last week, and I believe there's might even be one more update coming this week. And so it is making us, we're trying to think of everything, and so it helps because we haven't thought of it all. For Jeff, that's no surprise. He knows me well. No, but I mean, we need your input. So I appreciate you asking this question, and it is something that we'll follow up with conversations on, and probably somebody will be contacting you, Jeff, just to get a little more information on that.
Sure.
Because you're right, that is something that we need to address.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Chad, it looks like you've got your hand raised.
Thank you, guys. So my first question is, if a parent doesn't sign the addendum for virtual services, you know, if you can't get a hold of them by September 8th, which I believe is the deadline, what does the case manager do at that point?
Hi, Chad. Yeah, we have provided our PSLs, and I believe they've turned it around to your chairs, our frequently asked questions, which this is one of them. And we have said they're just going to document, and then you know, document in their IEP log and do multiple attempts to try to solicit the parents' input. And then if they don't have it all, you know, taken care of by the beginning of school, they're going to just schedule the student for the amount of service that they can, as consistent as they possibly can to the last consented to IEP.
Thanks. Is that FAQ document, is that on the hub?
It's on our DPE site, and correct me if I'm wrong, Debbie, I don't think we've moved it over to the web, to the hub yet, but we can.
Yeah, we were sending it to Christina was going to send it to PSLs today, and then we were getting it to Kiana so we could put it on the DP&E site. And then we're going to be giving PSLs like some language for the relevant factor section of the PWN that relate to questions of if a parent doesn't respond or a parent doesn't sign or a parent signs impartial. So we're going to be providing, hopefully in the next couple of days, that to PSLs, and they'll pass it on to schools.
Okay. And I just have another question, if you don't mind. And that's, if you have an annual IEP that's due like shortly thereafter, let's say like mid-October, could we as a school just do an annual IEP like as soon as possible instead of having to do an addendum and this, you know, turn it around a couple weeks later to have, you know, having to do an annual?
Yes, you can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I'm looking for additional hands that might be raised, and while we're waiting, I will just also add that we are right now this week going to be meeting in senior leadership and talking a little bit more about the phase-in plans, and we know that as part of the phase-in plan that was introduced to the school board during the work session, it did involve students who are receiving Category B services during that second group who potentially could be phasing back in. We don't have a definite timeline of dates right now, but please know that as we get more information and more decisions are made, we'll be sharing that information out to you. I know Dr. Brabrand has stressed the importance of a strong virtual opening, but wanted to give you some assurances that we are having ongoing conversations around these groups that were at least initially identified as potentially phasing in sooner. So I just wanted to mention that to everyone. Maria.
Okay, I have a question. And I'm not sure if I'm asking it correctly, but if we, so do we need to document on an IEP if we modify a schedule for a Cat B student, if they're going to a general ed elective? So it's not that we're changing their hours, it's just we're modifying, we might be changing their elective or we might be modifying their elective. Do we have to document that in the IEP?
That's a great question, Maria. What you can do, if you're not changing anything else about the special education services or goals or accommodations, then as our guidance document says, you can just document what you are going to implement, including an elective special, in a PWN. So that saves you a meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, well, I don't see any additional hands raised right now, but I just want to reemphasize that if you have follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to your PSLs, to your instructional leaders in order to have your questions answered. Any sort of support around specialized reading or math programs, Ellie Stack and her team, related services, Judy Dupre and her team. So please utilize your central office resources should you have any follow-up questions. We are going to be holding another session next Monday afternoon, same time, same link. You should have received an invitation to that session. We'll go through some updates again and allow for Q&A. I'll be scheduling in September additional touch base sessions. Again, I'll go with the Monday afternoon time frame similar to this. And as you feel you need to come in or have your department chair or one of your APs join the session, please be sure to share that information with them and forward the link to the meeting. Well, if there are no other questions for us today, we're going to go ahead and end this session. As a reminder, I'm going to email you the link to the recording of this session that you can share with staff, and I'll also send you attached to that email a copy of today's PowerPoint. But again, thank you so much for all that you do and all that your staff are doing to make this a successful start to the school year, and just know that we're here to help support in any way that we can. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and have a great day.